We are live.
Welcome back to Fire Your Boss Fridays, the podcast that empowers you to reclaim your life, embrace entrepreneurship, and live with purpose. I'm your host, Chad Pesa, and today's episode is going to leave you inspired and ready to take charge of your destiny. Joining us is a mentor of mine and a good friend, Gary Crawford III, a real estate investor turned developer who has a lot to share with us. At Fire Your Boss Fridays, we believe in stealing your life back, firing your boss, and living a life full of purpose. And our guest exemplifies these values. From selling on eBay to running a painting company, his entrepreneurial spirit has always burned bright, and I have witnessed it firsthand. Today, he's here to share his turning points, his insights, and the secrets to his success. Gary is not just an accomplished real estate investor and developer, but a shining example of determination and living life on his own terms. He's crafted a lifestyle that allows him to travel and explore, all while making a positive impact on the world. And today, he's going to inspire us with his wisdom and experience. So get ready to be captivated as we dive deep into Gary's journey, his triumphs, his challenges, and the practical strategies that he employs. From finding purpose to overcoming obstacles, Gary is going to share invaluable insight that will empower you, hopefully, to embark on your own entrepreneurial path. So let's welcome Gary to Fire Your Boss Fridays, where we believe in living a life of essentialism, firing your boss, and serving the world with the best version of yourself.
Let's all welcome Gary to the show. I'm going to jump right into the questions, Gary, because first of all, we want to hear your voice. We've heard enough of me today, and I know that was a long, drawn-out intro, but how did you like it? What did you think of yourself?
That was good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Gary's a good man, so we're really, really happy to have you. Thrilled to have you, really. Why don't you open the show? Tell me about where this all began for you, Gary, maybe where we met. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. I was thinking about that right after you had asked me to join, the podcast. I was thinking about when we were back in our glory days, probably like 5 years ago, 6.
It would have to be, maybe 6 years ago we met. It was a conference, an expo.
Yeah, the home show, and that was back when I had first moved to Vegas. Yeah, we were literally sitting at booths right next to each other, talking about.
Didn't know each other at all.
We didn't know each other at all, and we're talking about stuff not related to what we were currently, doing for work. We were talking more about long-term goals, and you're explaining to me some of your investments and stuff that you had done, and yeah, it was just kind of, it's funny, like we were there, and not like we weren't, giving it our all at what we were doing, but our minds were elsewhere.
That kind of says a lot about where we were in our lives, right? Like,
Yeah.
We're like, we're here at this expo doing our jobs, but we got bigger goals, right? Like we were dreaming, weren't we?
Right. Like we were already talking about, I was already saying, all right, when am I going to leave this job, and go, go do my own thing. And I think you were kind of saying the same.
Well, I remember you were like, you kind of had a sort of plan. You mentioned some certain months, and I'm like, wow, man, and I actually was like, that's way sooner than I would have thought based on our conversation. And then, I don't know if you recall, but you surprised everyone. I reached out to you a few months later, and you had already taken the leap.
Yeah.
You just went for it.
Yeah.
Did it have anything to do with that conversation?
Probably.
I wonder.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, for me, do you want me to go into?
Yeah, man. Elaborate.
Yeah.
This is fun. This is probably my favorite part. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like when I moved there, I had like $1,200 in my bank account. I went to school and everything, and was doing like selling solar at the time, and just like, I don't know. I didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted to go into real estate, and I saw stuff was super cheap in Vegas, and I was like looking around all over the country, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Vegas. And I worked for that company,
Painting
College
company.
Pro Painters. Yeah. And then they had another company called CertaPro, which was in Vegas, and they had like a sales position. And it was like I don't know, not a big salary at all, but some commission and stuff. But I was like, hey, you know what? It's a job to get out there. So I packed up all my stuff and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna head out there, and I put everything in the Volkswagen and found a room to rent for $500 a month, and and then eventually, my goal though from there was like, all right, I'm gonna buy a house. I'm gonna rent out by the room. That was my plan. So I was like,
Which we call house hacking, right?
right.
Like, did you know it was house hacking at the time, or was that like pre-knowing that? Yeah.
No, yeah, that
Okay.
was the thing. Yep. And I was like, I'm gonna get a house with as many bedrooms as I can, and I'm gonna rent out, the rooms. And I found a 7 bedroom, and I rented out, all of the rooms. I had a couple buddies move in that, they actually helped me out. I don't even know if they know it to this day. Like, they were living in a house that was in the middle of construction, and they're fine with it, kind
Right.
of going in and out, but
They didn't know they were adding to your dream, right? Like,
it covered my
yeah.
mortgage, and at the time it was tight. All my income was getting to, was paying off the house and the renovations and stuff. But that was like my steps to being able to ultimately, I was at like cash flowing like $2,500 a month from that. And then I was living for free, and I was like, you know what? I don't need my boss. Like I don't need him telling me.
I don't need my who's this guy, right?
I was like,
That's funny.
and that was kind of what I did.
So that was the tipping point. So what you just described
Yeah,
there was when you were shooting for something, but you still didn't know when you were going to officially jump
right,
at that, right?
right.
And there was the moment right there that you just described was like, yeah, it's looking like I could probably do this real estate thing at this point. I just need to, learn a little. This was one trick, right? The house
Yep.
hacking. When did you decide like the next level for you, like which was like flipping a house, like officially like getting into it? How did that develop?
Yes.
When did you think you're qualified for that? A lot of people are scared,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
You weren't
I
qualified,
went to
were you?
no, I went to a meetup, and I was going to some meetups and stuff, and then I found a group. They were doing what's called wholesaling. And,
Okay.
I know you know what it is, but just for simple explanation, basically you get a property under contract. So, hey, I'm going to buy your house for 100,000, and then I'm going to take that contract and I'm going to sell it to an investor, a flipper, for let's say
Flipper.
125,000, and
Mm-hmm.
then he's going to flip it and sell it for 300 or whatever. So you make the difference between the 125 and the 100. So you make 25,000. But
And this was appealing to you. You're like,
that was appealing,
yeah,
because
yeah.
because you don't need money, right? Like you don't have to put up $100,000 to buy the house. You just get the contract, and then you pass that contract off to the buyer. And at
Right.
the time it was like, oh, this is a great way to start. And it was, my first deal. It naturally got screwed over. I made
Naturally.
30.
Okay, hold on, guys. That isn't actually always the case, but it definitely your first one is rough because you don't even know what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So like, our first assignment fee was $1,350, not 13,000, $1,350, and you realize that, oh wow, that should have been like 15 grand. But anyways, you learn, and the
yeah,
best part about wholesaling, I think, was learning how to analyze a deal,
yeah.
figuring out what a property's worth, the repairs, and all that. So then, when it came time to flipping, once you have your capital up, you knew when a deal was good or bad. So that was
Right.
kind of after a couple wholesales, we jumped into flipping.
So flipping, that's where you're at right now. Let's take a long jump in Gary's life up to flipping, because you're doing luxury flips now in Connecticut, not in Las Vegas anymore. You made the move to Connecticut, and which is your hometown, the way I understand it. I think I talked to you a few times from your parents' house, and I got to say hi to mom and everything. So, but let's talk about your challenges going from there, like where you were in Vegas, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this wholesaling, flipping. I'm going for it. Like, what made you gravitate towards like luxury, and like what was the biggest challenge? I mean, you're clearly not afraid of any. Look at all the challenges we've already talked about. You're just like, slaying them. So what made you take that leap, and then why? Like, talk to me about luxury and why you thought it was a good fit for you, or did you stumble on it?
Well, so the reason why that actually became a thing, it's funny. I was in the locker room of the gym here in Connecticut, and I was talking to a guy, and every like morning we would like have like little conversations and stuff, but we didn't really like get into into too much. Like he kind of knew what I did just from hearing me like running around in the locker room talking on the phone to different contractors.
He's overhearing you, yeah.
So then one day I asked him, oh,
Gary's over there balling, yeah, 250,000. Get over there now, like, yeah. And he's like, "What do you do for a living?" Yeah.
and I asked him, I said, oh, so you live the retired life? And he's like, oh, no. He's like, I actually do what you do. And I was like, really? And I come to find out that he actually became like a like a mentor slash I call him and his wife like my second parents or grandparents.
Okay. Wow. Good for you. What a deal. I mean, just you land. That's luck, dude.
Yeah.
Right. Just pure overhears you and this whole thing, right? Destiny, we'll call it, rather than luck.
They're big into real estate in a town called Greenwich, and I've been there for years. And this guy's amazing. I could go on for hours about this guy and the amount of stuff he's done. But he said,
wow,
that I'll never forget. That was like, he asked me, he was like, hey, why are you messing around with these houses all over Connecticut, making 30 grand when you could do the same amount of work pretty much in Greenwich and make 300,000? And it kind of like made me like think like, like, huh. No.
You're like benching. You're like, what? He's right. What the heck am I doing?
Put on a couple more plates.
You're right. Yeah. Let's go big or go home. Right. So is that what that's the analogy, right? He's like, just put on a couple more plates, yeah, man. Go for it.
And they were on my shoulder again, for
bigger gains.
So he said that, and it made me think, and then I was like, all right, we'll get there, right? At the time,
yeah,
probably had like we were doing a lot at that time, like we had like 7 or 8 active flips, like in these smaller range ones, like $300,000-$400,000 homes, call them, and then
yeah,
I stumbled across one that was in this town of Greenwich, and it was a current 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,100 square feet. It was like an estate sale. The lady had passed away, and it was like 675 grand for the house, and
that was your purchase price, right?
Yeah, I put 7s on.
Okay,
it's lucky, but yeah, 777. But
all
yeah, right. So we bought that. So there was like a bunch of offers. We went and looked at it like the same day, that night it went on the market. I called his wife at like 11 at night, and she's like, hey, we could go look at it tomorrow morning. Went there, put the offer in, and then boom, like Sunday night we were accepted.
And this was a big play because you were going to add square footage. This is beyond what you normally would do, right?
Yeah, never hadn't done like an addition at all or anything like that. And in this town, what it's called the FAR.
What?
I'm gonna blank on what that means, right? What it stands for. Floor area ratio. Wow, I feel.
Oh, okay. So I got you. Okay, for like real estate valuation type stuff. Yeah.
So it basically it's the for example, like in a certain zones you could do up to like say 36% of the lot size.
Percent of the lot, right? Okay.
Build the house up to.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So what we were able to do is basically max out. Hey, what's the biggest house we could put on this lot? And that's.
I like this topic.
They maxed it out. So we found out we could build, up to maybe it was like 2,350 square feet. And then there's goals where, if like the top floor is less than 40% of the floor below it, it doesn't count. So like you hire an architect, which we hadn't worked with before, to, figure out the loopholes to maximize the size. So
and for
itself is, 2,800 square feet, call it, but on paper it's like 2,350 or whatever. So
right, and the beauty behind this, I think, as an investor, is you can build for blank amount, like $200 a square foot, but in that area it's going for what, 350 or 400 a square foot, or tell us the numbers on
I
that.
mean,
This like
so that house will go for 2 million, and it'll be like 2750 square feet. So
right. What price per square foot though?
that's a I would have to take out my calculator.
You have to do the math on it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
yeah, so okay.
100 and something, I think,
How
like
much?
800 and something or not.
A square
Yeah,
foot. And we all know like you can build almost anything for 200-300 bucks a square foot, like even
right.
luxury. Yeah, amen. Good for you, man. That's great. So, Gary, you obviously are a testimony to what someone can do in real estate, right? From not knowing almost anything, starting off with a classic house hack, which good for you, man. Which is sort of when I met you, which is kind of a cool experience for me, just watching you develop and kill it. And then what you had given to me, like you taught me how to wholesale. Like you're the guy that sent me on my journey too, because like but you forged the path, and then you turn back like most leaders do. Is they come back, they put their hand out, say, yeah, sure, I'm willing to help. And for you, Gary, you still do that for people, right? Like you still help people learn, how to do whether it's wholesaling or house flipping or whatever, but all over, not just in Connecticut. Am I right about that?
Yeah, actually, I just did a deal with a guy out in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Done 3 deals with him now. All creative finance. One is subject to, and then 2 are innovation deals, which is essentially
Man,
subject to, but you don't take title.
only one close,
Yep.
right? That the magic behind it. Yep. We'll go into that maybe in another podcast.
Yeah.
Or if you call Gary, he'll explain it to you in person. If you feel like he could help you, if you like Gary's style, which is, take charge of your life and make it happen. So some of the challenges that you face though, as a business owner, like, I don't know, taxes, growth. One of the things I got hit with was like, okay, my first year making over 100K, I'm like, wow, that's a serious tax bill that I was not looking forward to. I didn't even know that it was going to be like that. What are some other challenges that you think entrepreneurs maybe face when all they want is to grow, but there's real true growing pains, right? Like no matter what you do. Can you maybe say what like helped you get through it, or things people can avoid, or whatever, like
So
maybe purchases, or tell me about that.
yeah, 2 things. So, I mean, I would say the biggest thing, first and foremost, was having a good partner, and then hiring well.
Mm,
So my partner is very good at like construction, like not
okay.
physically doing it, but like managing the construction and doing all of that. So like
Mm-hmm.
him as my right hand man. So we're
Mm-hmm.
50-50. So I do more of the acquisition stuff, the dispositions on the back end.
Right.
And we qualify for everything and all that, like get our loans together and stuff, but he manages a lot of that rehab stuff. And then on this like new build, for example, we hired a project manager, as another person who's more local down to the area, a little more of that experience, as well. Just so we knew we had to hire, we gave up a little bit of the equity, and gave him a paycheck for that, because we knew ultimately we hadn't done it before ourselves. So hiring that and doing that, really.
So partnerships, number one, great partners, right? People you can trust, right? They're in your corner.
Yeah.
And being able to leverage them as an asset, right? But both ways, like you're an asset to the team as well. What do you think the second thing was that you were talking about? Or is that kind of a combo?
The second thing would definitely be like, so on these bigger ones, for example, like is finances, just like cash flow.
You're right.
We had a lot of little flips that were going on before, and like they weren't making hundreds of thousands of dollars, but like it was nice, even if it was 20 or 30 or 40, just to have money, like just coming in,
Mm-hmm.
because like on a lot of these properties we have interest only loans every month, and
Right.
like
Your leverage to the nil
yeah,
is what you're
yeah,
saying, right?
it gets to be a lot. So
there's a benefit to like maybe essentialism, which is something that I clearly stand for 100%. And I know you've tapped into it a little bit too. You've had to, because even as a house hacker, that's an essential life. Like you're living in a corner of your own home, right? To like get to that next level. It's like the fast track, right? You just have just what you need
Right.
to make it to the next level, just what you need to make it to that next level. And you're there too. Like now you're leveraging all your assets, and some days, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, you're living on limited means because you have the big prize coming,
Yeah.
right? Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely.
So you make sacrifices. You're like, listen, I ain't doing nothing for 2 months,
Yeah.
but in 2 months, I'm going to Mexico for a
Yeah,
month. So,
exactly. No, it's not all not all glory and like just like there'll be months where you don't have like this house, for example. We bought it last March. Um, Went through
mm-hmm.
some stuff with the town, and then took like a year for the build, pretty much. So like, yeah, these aren't quick paydays. So yeah, although the numbers might look good, you also have like your your interest costs and then your realtor fees and all that, which a lot of people
Aren't you an agent, Gary? You're an agent in Connecticut now, aren't
like
you?
down there, for example. That's like a different you have to have there's that town has its own MLS, and so it's you let someone who knows the market better do that for you. So
So how do you give back to your community, Gary? Now that you're like you're turning some pretty big deals, do you give back at all? Do you volunteer anywhere? Do you help anyone? I mean, if someone just called you for a question, are you like the kind of guy like gives back to your community,
I
or
help.
where are you
So
at?
there's people a lot that will reach out about different things, like even if it's like just different softwares or like how to like someone will call me like, hey, this house is going to like last month someone called and was like, hey, like this house is going to auction like or this coming weekend, like what do we do? And then we basically got them all the paperwork over there. We didn't even end up buying the house, but we helped them like go down to the courthouse and file everything to just stop the auction. So
Right.
the guy didn't lose his house. And so, I mean, like,
That's awesome,
I don't know.
dude. Yeah, that's what people don't take for granted with investors. Like we've saved people's families for
Yeah.
sure numerous times. So thank you for sharing that story,
Yeah.
man.
Not even if, it doesn't have to be something we're going to buy if we know how to help out and, they don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, they don't. There should never be another foreclosure. We all know that, Gary, right?
Right.
If everyone knew what we knew, I know enough investors on speed dial to buy every foreclosure, but it's the homeowner that doesn't know their options,
Right.
right? And it just ends up going, through the full process. So, so let's get into these are some heavy questions and they're sort of loaded. So I like having fun with this, but your current projects, but these, I think it's super cool what you're doing, man, but I want to tap into something that's fun for me. You seem to have crafted the life that you live, Gary, right? You did have goals. I remember we talked about them, like I said, at that expo or home show, but do you believe everyone is in control of their destiny, or is it just a lot of luck and happenstance? Like you remember the gym locker room, right? Like there's certain parts of it that in your story that's like, okay, I got lucky and this happened, but there's parts of it that you've constructed. Do you think your life is happenstance or destiny, or what's your thought? What's your take on that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think
Thanks, man.
like funny, you didn't prep me on these, but no, it's like at the end of the day, you create your own destiny. And I think like if there's something you want to do, there's a way to do that regardless of your situation. There's ways to figure out how to make that happen. And now it might not be happens overnight. It could be years down the road. But I think that like if ultimately you want to do, let's say you want to retire and you want to work for yourself. Well, all right,
Mm-hmm.
quit your job tomorrow and go work for yourself. But you could set up a plan and over
Take action. Yeah.
take action. And I think that I have people that I'll have a conversation with them saying, oh, I want to get in real estate or I want to flip a house, and then I'll see that person like a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later,
Same BS.
same situation. So
Still crying about whatever.
right.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to talk bad, but like that's just kind of
No, man. But that's what you're witnessing. So that leads me to my next question. So it's sort of loaded. You walked right into it, which is good because these questions are what we should be asking ourselves all the time. Like, Gary, can everyone truly become an entrepreneur and fire their boss? Or are there certain traits and circumstances that do apply? Like, is it really for everyone?
No.
Really? I mean,
No.
it's not, is it? Right? Interesting. You feel the same way I do. But I was just curious at what your take was on it.
Yeah. No.
Do you think there's a specific characteristic or trait that you need?
I think it's just there's some people that need to be led rather than leading themselves. And I don't know. I think that there's people that they need to be told what to do, and they'll do it. But then there's other people that will just do it themselves. And I feel like you're kind of either born with it or you're not.
Okay. I love it. So what's your advice then? Let's say I don't know if I'm born with it because I'm like, but I think about it a lot. Like those people who come up to you, what could you do or say maybe, Gary, that could just not push someone off the fence where you might hurt them, right? You don't want to push them into anything that could hurt themselves financially, but what could you do to nudge someone? Do you have any advice for anyone? I know this is, again, a pretty heavy topic, and not that you have to give any advice, but I'm eager to kind of pick your brain on it a little bit and see because we're really just here to serve our community, right? The whole podcast is really like to give back, right? And so what can we give, the listeners, like that they're on the fence? Like, do you need certainty? What do you need to know for sure that it's right for you?
I mean, if I'm like, for example, if someone comes to me and they want to get into real estate and do a flip, or they want to start let's say they want to start wholesaling, for example, I might give them like, all right, hey, like you need to get this list, like you need to, for example, you need to get a pre-foreclosure list or a tax lien list.
You're giving me flashbacks. When you sent me that text, you're like, just get a pre-foreclosure list, record this voicemail, and go to Slide Broadcast and call me if that works out. I'm like, that's my mentorship. Hey, it worked. It worked, Gary. That's all I got to say. So keep up the good work, man. Okay, so continue. Sorry, man.
That's funny.
Gave me a flashback.
You're like, oh no. But yeah, so like, you give them like, hey, steps 1, 2, and 3, and then
3.
Need help on that, or if you need to figuring out, if there's a problem with this or whatever. And then I would say 9 out of 10 people won't call back.
So but you have to have confidence in yourself, because you give them the list of things, which worked for me, by the way. We won't go into the details, but what Gary just said literally is what he told me, and I went out and took action. And I think he was a little taken back because I'm like, I think I got a lead. I'm going to go over there and sign a contract. Can you meet me over there? And we end up closing that deal. And
we sat at the table for 2 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But you're right. Just a few steps. And if you can get past those first few steps, you have what it takes, essentially. Because that's all it is 3 steps today, 3 steps tomorrow. You don't do the whole thing in one day. Right? So I think that's great advice, man. Just take the next step. So we're going to wrap it up here. But dude, you gave some extremely awesome feedback. Any books coming out from Gary Crawford III in the future? Wholesaling 101. It's a three-step book. Just get started. Just get started.
Voicemail call.
You're right. Love it. That kind of does bring us to the end, man. And we didn't get to touch on everything. So maybe once you got some next property you got or something else you got going on, I'd love to have you back, man.
Yeah.
But I think it's been pretty inspiring. Fire Your Boss Fridays is a thing that we're just doing, trying to get people off that fence. And I think what you brought to the table today I think it really was inspiring. Hopefully the listeners feel the same way. So huge thanks goes out to Gary. Everybody give Gary the round of applause that he deserves here for putting his time in. And he's here for you guys. So don't forget, he's here to drop some info. Should I give him your Insta? How should people get a hold of you? Yeah. What is it? Lay it out on us. What's your Insta?
GC3 and then __. And then
which stands for Gary Crawford III, right?
Correct. And then I have my phone number is on there as well. So if anyone wants to reach out, they're always welcome to do that. So
cool. Be part of the community. Start your journey. Steps 1, 2, 3. Cool. Thanks for being around, and thanks, Gary, again for being a part of our show, man. It's super cool, and I thought it was cool just catching up. So thanks, brother.
Listeners, this is for you. It is never too late to steal your life back, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose. So join us next time as we continue exploring the path to empowerment and entrepreneurship. Stay motivated, stay inspired, and always be the best version of yourself.